Hi, my name's Russ. I'm making this video to show you how I made a skybox texture that works. In Unreal Engine 5, I'm using 5.1. I don't normally make videos like this, but it took me a while to solve the problem and I was frustrated, and I just thought maybe there are other people out there who need to figure this out and couldn't find a solution. So this is a skybox space texture that works. Just a couple of details. It's not using a sphere, it's using a cube or a box, and it's specifically for like a space scene, because there are plenty of things I found for like just normal scenes on planet Earth where you don't have to look down below the horizon and stuff. Yeah, so basically, from what I understand, it's better to use a sphere, but I had a lot of trouble figuring that out. So you can, for example, add a sphere into the scene and then like put a decent HDRI map on it and then scale that up kind of big, like that, and suddenly it looks great and it all works perfectly. But the problem is that's like mountains and whatever, and I wanted stars only, and so I've deleted that, and I wanted this kind of everywhere you look it's out in space, and for some reason I couldn't find that anywhere, so this is how I solved it. So it's a spacescape and it's not on a sphere, it's on a cube. I hope that helps. I think we can get rid of that. Okay. So first of all, I found a website which looks like this, which I'll put in the description below. It's really cool because you can just like hit randomize seed and it just completely generates new cool stuff. And you can add a star, or you can turn on and off things. And then you can download the file. When you download the file, it looks like a weird shaped file like this, like a cross format. Which is part of the problem and makes it a bit tricky to figure out how to do it. So it looks like this once you drag it into the Unreal Engine editor. And you'll notice that there are large chunks of empty space there, and if you try to apply that to things, then you might see large sections that are not like, don't apply. So if we, for example, get a sphere, and so I made a material so that the texture is the texture if you drag the image in, and then you have to make a material. I'll quickly open that up. I don't want to explain this, but I made a material, I made it unlit, I dragged the texture in here, connected it to the emissive color, made it a little bit brighter. Details you don't really need to know about, you can look elsewhere for that. So, and then if you drag that material, for example, onto a sphere like this, I might just make the sphere a little bit bigger, so maybe 5 times the size. What you will find is that although it looks good in places, it has enormous black areas, and that's no good. So if we make it really big, this is a 2-sided material, so when we're on the inside, if you look around, it all looks great, except there are these huge black spaces because of how the cube map thing works. So I just select and delete that. So yeah, so what I had to do was go into Blender. I might just show you how to do this really quick. So if you use Blender, it's really cool, it's great for modeling, definitely worth learning. And select a cube, it's free by the way, just get Blender, it's so cool. So if I have a look at the UV map for this particular cube, you'll see it looks like that cross format. Let's go back and have a look in, so here's the cross shape, but it's on its side, and then here it is here again, but it's standing up. So the trick was then to try and manipulate this a little bit so that it pretty much looks exactly like that. So if I just drag a box and select, I can hit R for rotate, and then -90, enter, and now it's turned it on its side, and I thought that would pretty much do it. But there is a problem which is that this image here is not a square altogether. Even with the empty space, it's not a square. It's four squares across, but only 3 squares down. It's like a grid, 4 across, 3 down. Whereas if you look at this image, this is a square, and the empty space kind of goes out beyond in ways that that you can't see above here, for example, or below here. Yeah, so I had to sort of stretch this a little bit to make it work. So if I hit S for scale, y-axis, and then 1.33, I've just made it sort of 30%, or 1/3 bigger, 1/3 bigger. So now if this entire thing were to be resized in a way where it's squished into a 4x3 grid, it would look like this. It would have the proportions like this if it was squished. Yeah, and that was the solution. So if I go back to this and file and export, and I don't want to explain to you how to do exporting in Blender, but I'm doing it anyway, and so it's just like the selected object, the mesh, and then there's other details you might want to change. That creates a mesh, then you drag that into the editor. So if we look in the editor, if I go into meshes, this is the object that I dragged in, so it's just a cube, just from Blender. And then if we go back, so if I if I put a normal cube in the world, plus shapes cube, if I go to materials and try to apply this material here, you see the same problem we saw when I showed you the sphere, where there are big black spaces and it looks good, but then the gaps look terrible, so it doesn't work. But I made that other mesh that I just showed you in Blender. It looks exactly the same, but it's wrapped differently. The UV mapping is different, and you can even see how it's stretched. The squares are stretched. So then if we go back to materials, we can just drag that on, and you beauty, it works. So all the seams are all lined up perfectly. And if we just make that really big, for example, I'll delete our skybox, and I'm going to select this and just make it like bigger than where I am. Now we're inside the skybox, and it works. So I hope that helps, because it was really frustrating for me to get that to work. Don't like and subscribe, I'm not interested.